and thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, we are about to have a conversation that is very important, centering around the older persons in the society, a conversation that is coming just days after we observe the International Day of Older Persons. And we just want to better understand how we can be there for them and also tap into what they have to offer, because there is a lot, as my guest will be letting us know. His name is Jude Otogo. Jude is the country representative for HelpAge International Kenya. Thank you so much for creating time for us, Jude.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, perhaps a good place to start would be for us to understand what is your mandate as HelpAge International?
Well, HelpAge International is a secretariat to a number of organizations globally, slightly more than 150 organizations that work with older persons to advance their rights and well-being. That's what HelpAge does. Works with older persons to advance the rights and well-being of older persons in the world.
All right. It's good that we have you today, because we just want to sink into their world and to understand how we can be there for them in a better, way to improve how we have been treating them in the past. And let's begin by understanding, when we talk about older persons, what percentage or what numbers do they occupy when it comes to if you look at the demographic, what percentage do they account for as older people?
Thank you, Sophie. In Kenya currently, we have in excess of 2.7 million older persons. Those are individuals aged 60 years and above. That's about 6% of the total population of this country, slightly more than what the age of those under 5 years is. And that's not a population that you just want to ignore. It has impacts on society, impacts on the economy, and indeed, that populace is an opportunity. Contrary to what most people consider older persons to be, that they are burden in society, they are spent forces. No, they are not. They are a gem. It's a resource that we can utilize to advance our national agenda.
That is exactly why we're here, so that we can see how that relationship can be a win-win and how we can change that perspective of looking at them as a burden as opposed to people who can actually play a role in pushing this nation forward. And I just want to understand from you, because you cited in excess of 2.7 million.
Correct.
I underlined the word in excess, just so that you can help us understand. What do you mean when you say in excess of 2.7 million?
That was in the year 2019 during the national census. And the one thing about the older population is actually growing and growing very fast. So my assumption is for the past close to 2 years, that population has gone up. Probably it's like 3 million currently. This is a population that most have retired from gainful employment. Okay, but that does not mean that they are no longer useful. All of us would like to experience healthy aging. And what does that mean? Ability to experience some very unique desires. For example, we want to be what we love and to do what we love and value. And some of those things include ability to move around, ability to meet our basic needs, ability to build relationships, ability to learn, grow, and make decisions, and many other things. So we have a population whose needs span across those areas I've mentioned. They are not engaged in any gainful employment because they have retired. But it's not true that they cannot make a contribution. For example, we may just be required to reorient slightly their engagement in society. If, for example, there's a teacher that has retired, we can engage them for 2 or 3 days a week based on their capacity. We should give the opportunities to go back to school and study for masters, for PhD, and come back and serve. Take, for example, the constitutional offices. People serve well into their 70s. Why then are ordinary older persons not considered in the same light? Those are some of the things that we are grappling with. When it comes to health, again, when somebody attains the age of 60, that's when they experience the most non-communicable diseases. They require Medicare. But what happens? When Jude is in employment, his employer takes care of his health needs. When he retires and when he needs the most that health care, there's nobody to cater for their health needs. Even health insurance companies discriminate against people age 60 and above. In fact, only one company that recently introduced a cover for people age 60 and above. Are we together? Come to NHIF, which is like the universal health pension for the country. Most people contribute through their statutory deductions when they're in employment. Thereafter, they have to dig into their pockets. But do they have the resources to pay for that 500 shillings for NHIF? So you can see the challenges that older persons grapple with in society.
Yeah, true. And as we continue talking about those challenges, and I'd just like to take you back to a survey that HelpAge International conducted in 2020 that highlighted some of these issues you're talking about. I just want to understand on a basic level, what are some of the key challenges, the priority areas that you identified that we need to be focusing on as a country, just looking at our context as Kenya?
Great. This year, like last year's International Day of Older Persons, is celebrated or was celebrated amidst the raging COVID-19 pandemic. And besides the fact that older persons are more exposed and at a greater risk of contracting the virus, suffering severe forms and succumbing to the same, the pandemic has also had great impact on their social life, on their economic lives, on their well-being. Why do I say this? Due to the containment measures, older persons were literally confined to their residences. What does that mean? That they will not get an opportunity to associate with family, relate with friends, make trips wherever it is that they were going. Probably for those that had some jobs to earn them some little income, again, they lost that. And so they were exposed in more ways than one. During the survey that we did to basically get to appraise the kind of challenges older persons face, it came out very clearly that most of them were unable to access health services. Most of them could not get adequate nutrition or other food supplies. Access to water and sanitation services were a problem. They were abused because of that confinement. They were abused and experienced violence and neglect, causing some of them to develop mental and psychosocial conditions. So those are some of the challenges that older people faced and continue facing in the COVID-19 pandemic era. Yes.
So when it comes to planning for this population, what principles ought to guide us? How do we then go about it? Because you say they actually attribute to 6% of the entire population, and this is a population that cannot be ignored. We all agree on that. What are some of the principles that should guide, the planning and even the budgeting for this, special demographic?
I would probably put responsibility at 3 levels.
Yeah.
I said all of us would love to experience healthy aging, ability to meet our basic needs, enjoy the best health, be able to travel around and all that. And the first thing that I would urge this nation to do is have the leadership commit themselves to putting in place policies and systems that promote healthy aging. What do I mean by that? Let's take, for example, the healthcare system. It is biased towards other population cohorts and not older persons. There are not many health programs that focus on older persons, a whole 6% of the population. Yet we have programs for the youth, for adolescents, for women, for children, but older persons are not featuring anywhere. We therefore would like the leadership to put in place a policy and legislative framework that promotes better health for older persons. Secondly, I mentioned that they need to meet their basic needs for health, for food, for shelter, for clothing and all that. But how do they meet their needs if they do not have a sustainable source of income? Thanks to our president, at least 70-year-olds and above have access to the universal pension. Excellent. What happens to those that are aged between 60 and 69? That have retired, that are not on any pension? Can we have some social protection mechanisms in place? Let the national government have that in place. Let the county governments have that in place. So then older persons live some kind of dignified life. The other thing that the leadership could do is put in place laws that outlaw ageism, where ageism means prejudice, discrimination, and stereotyping based on age. For example, somebody would say, older persons are a burden, they are slow. That's ageism. Actually, it's like it's like discriminating them simply because they are old. They are not any different from you and I. The only difference is that they're a bit advanced in age. That is for the leadership. When it comes to society, let's interact with older persons. Let's help them relate. Let's help them to have self-esteem. Let's not discriminate against them. Okay? Let's not be prejudicial to them. That's what the society can do. And for the individual older persons, there are those decisions that we take, that we make. We call them healthy lifestyles. Taking a walk in the evening, doing some housework, forming a group with other older persons, and just having psychosocial support amongst themselves. So those are the three levels that we need to address when it comes to older persons experience healthy aging. It's really about having an environment that's facilitative of healthy aging. And when I talk of environment here, I'm not just talking of the physical or the built environment. Relationships is a social environment. We need a police environment, a political environment that's all supportive of the health and the well-being of older persons.
All right. I just want to quote, part of, the speech you had when we were marking the International Day of Older Persons, and probably on something you said, and this is something that I quote from your speech. Older persons have a wealth of knowledge and experience and should therefore remain integrated in the society, participate in policy formulation and implementation, but also impart this intellectual wealth to younger generations. How much of this is happening though? And how do we leverage in this gem that we've been talking about? Because clearly from what you're saying, there's a hidden gem in this demographic. How much of it are we tapping, and how do we, make this practical?
Safin, if we are tapping anything at all, it must be very little.
Yeah.
The truth is, we have not engaged older persons and drawn from that wealth of experience, of knowledge. The best would be to have intergeneration programming, where we have forums of youth or the younger people interacting or intersecting with older persons, with the younger people mentoring older persons, for example, in an area of technology, digital technology. Very important. Let's engage the younger people to mentor older persons on that, and the older persons to mentor younger people on areas that they have gone through life. So far, there isn't that plan in place. There isn't such a program, and we have deliberately go out and find areas of possible intersections between the younger generation and the older generation. Now that I talked about reverse mentorship, maybe I could also just mention about technology. Currently, the world is really living or riding on digital revolution. Everything literally happens on the basis of technological advances. We do transactions through the phone, through the internet. We do our meetings virtually. Even health, we have mHealth and eHealth. People consult virtually. They order for their medicines and receive using technological applications. But where are older people in all that?
Good question. And as you continue, it's good to also point out that formed the basis of the theme for this year's
Correct.
International Day of Older Persons, digital equity for all ages. I find that theme really inspiring, because most of the time when you talk about older persons in the society and going digital, you disconnect these two things because you feel maybe they may not be conversant with what is happening in the digital world. So you asked a very important question, and I want you to just tell us, how then do we go about it? Where are the older persons when we are talking about going digital?
Thank you. I still want to emphasize the importance of, one, having appropriate or supportive policies. Does this country have a policy on technology that brings in the older person? I don't think so. Do counties, because they are independent governments, have policies in place? But having said that, can we even at the community level, as society, organize opportunities for older persons to use as simple things as the phone? Some older person can barely do a transaction on their phone. Is it that they can't learn? No, they can learn just like the younger people. Why do they have to give their funds to a younger person to go and withdraw cash for them? Why do they have to be taken to the bank to go and withdraw the 4,000 shillings that government has given them? Why can't they do mobile banking and don't suffer the trouble of having to travel, which puts them at risk actually? So there is a lot that society can do. There is a lot that the leadership can do at the national and the county or the subnational government levels.
All right. I just want to understand about, how do we, in terms of your recommendations on this particular, study that you conducted as an organization, what were some of the policy gaps that, probably you identified, and were there ways in which you could seal them as a country, looking at the policies we've had when it comes to the welfare of older persons? Was there something that touched on that in your survey?
We can only infer from our findings and make recommendations to the leadership of the country, to the leadership of the counties, and to society. We have the African Union Protocol on the Rights of the Older Persons. It's a very comprehensive and elaborate document that outlines various areas of need for older persons, from long-term care, health, livelihoods, social protection, safety, name it, everything is in that document. It's currently, I think, with our National Assembly. In passing that document and domesticating it into law in Kenya, we shall have provided a ground for addressing most of those things, because that's where policy is hinged. That's where legislation is hinged. So my appeal is to the concerned, which is the legislator. Let's have the African Union Protocol approved and then bring it back home and domesticate. That's one. Two, as I mentioned, of course, leadership plays a very major role. That commitment to the rights, the needs of older persons, very key. And for society, one of the things that is really causing all these issues is ageism, what I described as stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination on the basis of age. Let's start thinking differently about older persons. Let's start acting differently towards older persons. That way we shall have a society that experiences healthy aging, able to meet their needs. They need not necessarily have everything done for them. There's a lot that they can do for them, besides doing a lot for society, even at their advanced age.
All right. I want us to look at something here. When we are talking about the welfare of children, there are cases we've had in the past where if, as just a concerned party, and you see a family mistreating a child, it could be a child with disability or just an ordinary child, you can actually even report on behalf of that particular child and something is done. When it comes to older persons in the society, and you'll see most of them, some of them in a very sorry state in the villages. They've been abandoned, they've been left on their own, neglected, and they could be living within very disturbing conditions. Is there something relatable that can be done for older persons in the society? Can somebody even report or do something about that kind of a scenario? The family can be taken into account and even be forced to take responsibility of that person. Do we have something like that in our country right now?
Thank you. Maybe I'll just step back. You say that it's very easy for a member of society to report when a child is being abused, mistreated, and all that. The reason they report is because we have gone the childhood experience. We therefore would not like to see a child go through what we went through. And like in old age, nobody becomes old and comes back and say, I went through this in my old age, and so I wouldn't like this to happen to someone else. That's why we should be proactive. We may not have mechanisms, specific mechanisms, but in society we have gatekeepers. In some communities we have what we call beneficiary welfare committees, especially where we have programs for cash transfers and other social protection programs. But besides that, we have our safety and security apparatus. We have the national coordination government, the national coordination, Ministry of National Government and Coordination, where we have the chief, the assistant chiefs, and I think now it goes all the way to ward administrators and village elders. Those should actually be the persons, the focal point persons that should ensure that no person, irrespective of their age, suffers in form of neglect, abuse, or violence at all. So, yeah.
But as a stakeholder in this, what would you advise families when it comes to taking care of they could be having a senior citizen among them? What should they do? Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
Previously, it would be very easy to have a member of the family, a daughter, a son, taking care of the older persons, a grandchild. But today, and this would always be either women or girls, today those younger people are moving out of home to seek educational opportunities, to seek employment opportunities, leaving older persons literally unto themselves. Can we then have community-based long-term care structures? For example, when it comes to health, we have the so-called community health volunteers. Can we build their capacities beyond what they are currently doing, which is focused on children and women, to include older persons? Because a CHV, a community health volunteer, takes care of a number of households not far from where they live. So they know exactly what afflicts which member of which household. That would be a very good opportunity. We explore utilizing the already existing structures, because we do not have social welfare services that go right into the community. I think the lowest level is the sub-county level, where we have this the sub-county development officer, and that is way, way higher than a point of traction that would be necessary to give individualized attention to the older persons. Yep.
Wouldn't that be looked at as delegating, responsibility, the family delegating responsibility? Isn't there something that they can do, practically speaking?
As society?
As a family unit. I've gone to the homestead now.
As a family unit. Yes, it's possible for older persons that have undergone significant loss of function. Okay? It's possible for family to get someone to provide the long-term care, of course paid. Unfortunately, in this country, we don't have long-term care facilities, and the same is the case across Africa. Maybe in the Western democracies and Asian countries, we have lots of long-term care facilities. We can contextualize that within our own environments. And by the way, the best place to age is home.
True.
We may put up these beautiful long-term care homes, but then these older persons will be depressed out there, as opposed to when they are taken care of within their homes.
All right. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this conversation. I'd just like to give you maybe 1 minute for your final remarks. We now understand that they have the hidden gem. There are things we can tap. They actually, it is an opportunity on its own, just having them as part of the society. What is your final remarks to somebody who is watching and they are wondering, what is next? How do I better the world for the older persons? What should I do? What is my role? What will be your parting shots?
Thank you. To the leadership, let's have the commitment. Let's put in place policies and systems that are supportive of healthy aging. To society, my appeal is very simple. Older persons are no different from us. The fact that they are 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years doesn't make them useless. In fact, if well treated, if well taken care of, they will be a great resource. Let's not discriminate against them. Let's not stereotype against them. Let's not be prejudicial to the older persons and to the older persons themselves. Take some action to make your life better by leading a healthy lifestyle. Don't sit there the whole day, walk around, relate, meet friends, meet family, and all shall be well.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. You know what? We could be talking about older persons now, but A few days to come, we will be those people we are talking about.
Anyway.
So we will just join that age bracket. What you do today will actually determine what will be done for you when you get to that age bracket. Thank you so much, Jude Otogo, for creating time for us. Jude is the country representative, HelpAge International, Kenya, and we've just been talking about the welfare of older persons in the society just 2 days after we marked the International Day of Older Persons globally. We appreciate your time.